So this is really cool. For these next few episodes of Agape and Eros, we went live. We got together some relationship experts, some counselors who know what they're doing, and also someone who's really active with students and knows what they are looking for in understanding interpersonal relationships, dating relationships. And we let the students ask the questions. We said, what comes to mind when you think of healthy relationships? And what are some of the questions that you have about relationships that you are currently experiencing in your life? So each episode will feature one question, and we hope you enjoy all the things that our students are dealing with. We hope that you gain some information and knowledge and have fun.
So how do you guys approach warning signs in relationships?
Cool. Okay, let's start with Avanti.
Okay, that's a really good question. I think the fact that you already know it's a red flag and a warning sign says a lot, right? So what comes up for you with that? Why is it exploring why it's a warning sign, why it's a red flag for you? And I think that's really also where we come and talk about boundaries, right? And I think boundaries are kind of a scary word. I think there's this negative connotation of what boundaries actually mean. But boundaries are, I always like to frame it for myself, that boundaries are not about the other person or for the other person, they're for you. And so they're to protect you. So when there's a warning sign, like navigating, okay, what does my boundary look like with this, right? Are there ways that I'm willing to compromise, or is this a non-negotiable thing? Whether this red flag is like, nope, I'm done, I'm out.
Red flags today become major problems tomorrow, right? Red flags just don't go away. So there's this honeymoon phase of any relationship. A lot of times, if we don't do the individual work now, figure out who we are, right? And that's going to always be in flux, because the person I am today is not who I was 5 years ago, and hopefully is not the same person I will be in 5 years. So it's really about, this sounds weird, but really dating yourself, finding out who you are, what you love to do, what are your non-negotiables, as Avanti said, and what do you look for in a partner, right? What do you look for in a friend? Because what you look for in a spouse should be an elevation of that. So the friendship should be the base level, and then that relationship should be something that grows even further or more beautiful from that first baseline of friendship. So a red flag is something that you really want to pay attention to. You want to figure out what this red flag is and trust your gut. Trust your gut. Your friends, your family may say, oh, you're just being paranoid, or, oh, it's going to be fine. It is not going to be fine, right? As a mental health counselor, I work with several clients who ignored that voice, right? There's a part of your brain that actually works with the pit of your stomach. Its connections are there. So when you feel that feeling in the pit of your stomach, that's literally your brain telling you, hey, this reminds me of that one TV show you watched about serial killers. And there was a lot, remember those red flags there? Yeah, this is the same thing, run away, right? And we're like, I just have butterflies. We try to dismiss it, right? But a lot of times there's a lot of wisdom in what you feel.
Yeah, that's awesome. David?
Yeah, I really appreciate the question. It's a really important one. I think it begins with this. I think it begins with you all having a vision of who you want to become, right? What you're going towards, like a future you and the traits, the best version possible of yourself. What does that look like? I think that it begins with that vision. And after you have that vision, it's a question of, is this person, whether it's a friendship or a romantic relationship or whatever it may be, is that relationship helping you going towards that version that you actually really want? So I think that's kind of like one of the key things to figuring out, like, is this a net positive type of relationship? Because I think what happens many times is that people don't have a vision of kind of what they're wanting and what they're wanting to go for. And so therefore, they may not even see the red flags when everyone else does. Or, as you heard some from my colleagues, they just kind of ignore these red flags. So between knowing really what you're wanting, what you want to be about, and letting that kind of be your North Star, and then really, as you heard, paying attention to yourself, right? Like listen to yourself. Like, look, you know, if constantly your body's telling you this isn't good, right? Yeah, many times it's about courage to actually follow through and either kind of change that relationship or maybe exit out of it. When I look back on the relationship mistakes I made, basically, I think I knew through a lot of them that there were a lot of red flags.
We don't need that.
Right? But it was a matter of actually going through it and like saying, like, you know what, this is not good for anyone. And then willing to be able to be honest and actually take a step. So I think that's the key of like that you know already, I think, if there's a red flag, and then having the courage to actually follow up on those things.
Yeah, and that's a great way to put it. I think they all kind of succinctly like talked about that red flag and basically like listen to your gut, know yourself, and do the work of like thinking about, okay, is this relationship working or not, right? And Larry, if you'll go ahead and share your story.
So do you want to hear the ex-girlfriend story or the best friend story? Best friend story? All right. So, all right.
That guy's excited for the best friend story.
All right.
He's like, I mean, that's a man who knows what he wants, right?
So I had a best friend since middle school, right? And we did everything together. And growing up, there were always these red flags, but not like from us. And so if you ever have a friend who's your best friend, your ride or die, and people bring up allegations against them, what do you do? Nah, that's my boy. He wouldn't do that, right? So you kind of blow it off and dismiss it, right? So recently, this person was even the best man at my wedding, right? Recently, a year ago, almost last September, not this one, but the previous one, I had to cut this person out of my life because all this evidence just came to my face and there was nothing I couldn't walk away in good conscience. I had to, face it. And it was hard because it's someone who basically his family was like my second family, right? We would consider brothers. When I would go to his house and he had to do chores, I did chores too. Like when they went on vacation, I went on vacation too. Like it was literally like a brother growing up. But this person was so far gone, so far out of the realm of who I want to associate with. And as David was saying, the idea of the future me, the me that I am sculpting, right? I'm co-creating with God, right? Because God gives me the abilities he's given me and he gives me the path, but I'm co-creating this with him, right? For my yeses and my nos. And the biggest boundary word you can use is no. Right? Because we can see physical boundaries. We know that this building has 4 walls, but we don't know what your emotional or your spiritual boundaries are unless you use the word no. You get closer, no. All right, it's here. All right, it's here. It's here, right? And some of us are afraid to use the word no, but it was really hard. Like a lot of people didn't understand and other people understood. And as soon as I cut this person out, just even more evidence came and more evidence came. Then I had several individuals come up to me and just thank me for standing up for them because they had some incidents that they didn't bring up. But that I made a declaration that if this person was going to be at this thing, I'm not going. Right? That's me putting my beliefs forward. I can't support that. And because of that, so many people felt that they were heard. They were able to speak through my voice because they felt like they didn't have a voice of their own. Right? And this is someone who I considered my brother, my best friend, all of this. And it was hard. I didn't want to, but at the end of the day, I had to face it. As David said, I had to have the courage to know that, hey, this isn't right. I can't go on living in this denial, the state of denial, the state of lie. And I had to cut this person out of my life because if you don't cut cancer out of your life, what happens? It spreads, it grows.
And Avanti, did you want to say something about that no boundary, setting that hard line and that being where you can create that space?
Yeah. I think like just hearing Larry share that story, one thing that came to my mind was how we change and how we grow, right? Like initially he was such a good friend and he was so close, but as you learn and as you grow and just learn more about yourself too, there's so many things that change about your values and your beliefs. And in the sense of ideally there's more conviction, right? And there's more courage to take those steps. But with boundaries, like, yeah, I agree. Boundaries can be scary and boundaries can be really hard, especially when it is someone that's been such a constant in your life. It can be hard to say, no, you know what? Like, I know what's better for me and I'm going to take this step. But at the same time, right? Like, you can't control another person in a relationship. All you can do is control yourself. And if you have to ask for what you need and that is not being heard and that is not being respected, like you have to keep it going. You have to keep asking for what you need, and you have to get that space. And that can be the hardest part, right? Asking for what you need and setting that boundary and saying no, because it's so much easier to say, okay, like I'm going to be a people pleaser and I want to keep my relationships. I know. Well, not just you, me too. Still totally something that I struggle with. And it's also really easy to say, well, why do I have to say this to them? Like they should just know, right? And sometimes you're totally right. They totally should know. But for some reason, there's a disconnect and they don't. And it goes back to asking for what you need, filling that gap. And then if that's still not being heard, well, maybe that's where you cut out that relationship, right? And having that courage to do so. Like, I think Larry sharing that story is really powerful, because I'm sure at a certain point, all of us up here have had to cut somebody out of our life. It wasn't the easiest decision, but it was the best decision. But it's challenging. It's hard.
Agape and Eros is a podcast produced by Max Studios at the University of St. Thomas in Houston. Check us out on Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok at Max Studios UST.